Hello and welcome back to Lorcana Villain. My name is Baker, and today we're going to be revealing a brand new card from the upcoming set, Ursula's Return. This is a huge honor for me. I've had the privilege of being able to reveal 2 cards in the past. For Rise of the Floodborn, I got to reveal the Most Diabolical Scheme, which obviously as a huge fan of Ratigan, I was absolutely chuffed by. And then for Into the Inklands, I was fortunate enough to release Boss is on a Roll. They very much kept me on theme with the songs and with the villains, but I have confirmed via Twitter the other day, today I will not be revealing a villain. Today I will not be revealing a song. Instead, today I'll be revealing my first character card on the channel, and this one not only is a hero, but is a legendary, which I'm absolutely chuffed by. So grateful to Ravensburger for trusting me with a legendary reveal. But the cherry on top, today I'll be revealing a brand new legendary Mickey Mouse card, which is just mind-blowing to me. Mickey Mouse is one of the most protected characters ever made. I know Disney take him very, very seriously, so I'm just honoured to be trusted with such an iconic character and to reveal them. Now, I know people want to see the card and see what it does, and we'll get there very soon, but I do want to give a shout out to the artist. I hope I'm saying this name right, Joachim van Gool, who has a lot of experience as an animator, character designer, illustrator. This is their personal website. It will be linked down below. And no stranger to Lorcana either. In Chapter 1, they brought us Goofy and Mickey Mouse Musketeers, Jasper Common Crook, and Rapunzel gifted with healing, one of the most powerful cards we have in our meta. For Set 2, they were all about that Gaston. We got the Baritone Bully, the 4 dozen eggs, and the Nothing to Hide cards. And for Into the Inklands, they gave us Chernabog, which the art goes so hard on this, and a good card in the game as well. Hydra, another fantastic art, and a card that we do see play, that does see play, and probably my favourite art of everything they've done. Not seeing much meta play at the moment, maybe one day, but yeah, Shenzi, Hyena Pack Leader. I think this art just goes so hard. So a huge thank you to Joachim for lending their skills to Lorcana once again, and they are back and better than ever, once again lending their paintbrush to the musketeer archetype. I often see players crying out for support for some of the more niche character types like pirates and brooms, with musketeers also being quite a clear fan favourite. We've already had a couple of new musketeers revealed to be on their way with Ursula's Return, such as Goofy Musketeer Swordsman and Minnie Musketeer Champion, and today I present a huge addition which will not only be an assured add to the musketeer archetype, but may even find some utility in competitive meta decks.
We have what it takes.
So without further ado, I present to you Mickey Mouse Musketeer Captain. He's a 7-cost uninkable with 3 strength and 6 willpower and 2 lore. He has the Floodborn, Hero, Musketeer and Captain characterizations. He can shift for 5 on top of another Mickey Mouse. He comes with the Bodyguard keyword, which is synonymous with most of our Musketeers. But being the big cheese that he is, he's also packing supports to give his powers a boost. And there's also a pretty good ability, but before we get there, you may have noticed that it seems the training wheels are coming off. For what I believe is the first time since the launch of Lorcana, the keywords here, bodyguard and support, are not accompanied by a description of how they work. Is this something that will set a precedent for the future? Other cards revealed from Set 4 have shown that most are still coming with a description, so maybe this is an exception due to the amount of text already on the card, but perhaps this will eventually be the standard for all Lorcana cards, but this part is purely speculation. Now onto the ability, one of the most powerful effects that any card can have, card draw. We have Musketeers United. When you play this character, if you used Shift to play him, you may draw a card for each character with Bodyguard you have in play. So to be clear about a couple of things straight away, firstly, since Mickey Mouse is a bodyguard himself, as long as you shift, you will always draw at least 1 card off of this effect, with the chance to draw additional cards for each other bodyguard that you control. Secondly, note that he doesn't actually require any other musketeers to gain value, so while he will still make a welcome addition to any committed musketeer-themed build, he will still synergize perfectly well, if not better, with decks that are just taking advantage of bodyguards in general. As long as we can find room for a shift target, as shifting is a requirement of this come into play ability. Now, I do actually think that Mickey can best achieve his full potential outside of an all-in musketeer deck, but the musketeers are still well worth taking a look at, as most of them come with the bodyguard keyword that we're interested in. Plus, my mouse is looking so dapper in that uniform, it'd be rude not to start off by looking at our brave heroes.
All for one
And 2 for team.
Chapter 1 gave us the original trio, Mickey, Donald and Goofy, each equipped with bodyguard and unique abilities that afford buffs exclusively to other musketeers. Goofy lets us remove 2 damage from each of our musketeers, Donald provides them evasive during your turn, and Mickey provides a +1 to strength. Goofy's effect is most likely going to be the least consistently useful of the 3, but his 6 strength is worth noting as it keeps him out of range of common threats like And Then Along Came Zeus. Plus 5 cost characters are useful in steel decks in general, as they help us to sing powerful songs like A Whole New World and Grab Your Swords. Donald's ability is pretty useful. Evasive has been a regular nuisance throughout Lorcana's lifespan thus far, and I don't expect it to stop being a relevant keyword anytime soon, so having ways to deal with them is good so long as our musketeer strength is enough, or can become enough, to deal with the most commonly seen evasive threats. Mickey Mouse's musketeer buff is likely the most useful to take advantage of, and it's worth noting that him boosting our new Floodborn Mickey up to a 4 strength keeps him out of range of the dreaded Madame Medusa. Although we can also achieve this with the new and upcoming Ping character, who provides a +1 strength to all heroes and is much cheaper, but doesn't have bodyguard. Steel Mickey is also out of range of Along Came Zeus, which is always an important factor to bear in mind, but additionally could act as a shift target for our Floodborn. This obviously doesn't sound too strong, as we've already paid a costly 7 to get the steel one onto the field, and then we're just giving him up along with the strength buff that he would be providing. Sometimes this will be fine to do just to get the card draw, but it's pretty expensive and overall a pretty passive couple of turns. We would much rather shift onto a cheaper Mickey, which we will get to soon. But firstly, let's finish looking through our musketeers, of which we've had 2 more confirmed to be joining the game with set 4. Firstly, we have another Amber Goofy, Musketeer Swordsman. He's a 4-cost uninkable with a 3/4 stat line and quest for 2 with the ability Ungorsh. When you play a character with bodyguard, you may ready him, but he can't quest for the rest of the turn. Being able to benefit from a large pool of bodyguarders is okay, especially if we want to quest him, play a bodyguard to ready, and then maybe sing something, but without possessing the bodyguard keyword himself, he doesn't provide much benefit to our Floodborn Mickey, and isn't a great choice overall, especially being uninkable, so I'm not too in love with this one right now. But just like the main mouse himself, I am pretty in love with our final musketeer. Minnie Mouse Musketeer Champion. She's an amber 5-cost uninkable with a 1/5 stat line and 2 lore. She comes with a bodyguard keyword and has a very powerful effect. When you play this character, banish chosen character with 5 strength or more. Characters that banish on play are traditionally very strong. This ability already exists in the game, courtesy of the song The World's Greatest Criminal Mind, which sees play to answer some common meta threats such as Maui, Maleficent and Tamatoa, not to mention that Amber gives us access to the Queen commanding presence, who we can give a +4 strength to any character we choose, making it combo really well with this particular effect. Minnie's going to make a fine addition to some decks who would prefer to have this ability on a body, even an uninkable one, and we get even more value for our Floodborn Mickey due to her bodyguard access, so unsurprisingly, this is a match made in heaven.
I want bodyguards!
That's it for our Musketeer cards. There is also the Musketeers to Bard item, but despite the name, it doesn't actually require Musketeers, just bodyguards. Minnie, I like a lot. The others, I'm not convinced they find their way into a deck built to best serve our Floodborn Mickey specifically. Donald is the most likely exception, as he's the cheapest and the evasive access is nice, but if we're playing Steel, we're already playing cards like Grab Your Swords and Strength for a Raging Fire, so we don't really need to rely on a dedicated evasive challenger. I've given some reasons that you might play Goofy or Mickey, but really I think they're too expensive to best serve the captain. Mickey's going to get the most value by maximising his draw potential. Drawing 1 is okay, but not really worth the effort of playing this. But if we can get 2 or even 3 bodyguard characters down first, letting us draw 3 or 4, suddenly this becomes a lot better. To achieve this, we would much prefer to play cheap bodyguard characters so that we can curve a couple out before our shift, or at least more reasonably enable us to flood a couple onto the field on the same turn that we shift. Our lowest cost bodyguards at the moment are Amber's Simba, Protective Cub, and Steel's Kida, Royal Warrior, who are both 2 cost inkables of a 2-3 stat line. These will work really nicely to fuel our Mickey, especially if we can play 1 on turn 2 and then play 2 of them on turn 4. That gives us 3 bodyguards on board already when we shift Mickey on turn 5 and draws us 4 cards. What's turn 3? Most likely where we're playing our baby Mickey to shift onto, but we'll get to that later. More importantly, while this line can provide a lot of draw, it does mean that either we're not questing the first few turns, or we are, but we're running the risk of the opponent taking out these little bodyguards before our shift turn, so we need to level our expectations for success when considering a line like this. Next, for 3 cost bodyguards, Steel has both Hercules and the Prince. Hercules hits a little harder, but only quests for 1. The Prince quests for 2 and is harder to remove due to his resist keyword, but he only hits back for 1. In a deck like this, which is going to be best played as an early to mid-range aggro build, the Prince is probably going to be better, but both may still be worth playing just to pack out our low-cost bodyguards. The next most interesting 3-drop bodyguard is Baloo, who has the ability to grant his player 2 lore as soon as he's banished. This will be a sure ad for me in a deck trying to maximise Mickey's potential. Finally, for 3 drops, we have Little John, Robin's pal, who has a 2-4 stat line and gains evasive during your turn. He also has a Floodborn that provides a buff to your bodyguards and might be interesting, but I'm not a fan of the 2 strength. And he only quests for 1. The same is true of Hercules, but the 3 strength on Hercules can make a big difference a lot of the time. But then again, sometimes so can 4 willpower. So there might be worlds where the meta favours the Little John over the Hercules. The real shame is that the Floodborn doesn't also have the bodyguard keyword himself. But the buffs of resist and extra lore to our bodyguarders does sound tempting, so there might be something there, especially if we can wait to shift Little John until after we've shifted Mickey, so that we don't lose the extra bodyguard for an extra card draw. For 4-drop bodyguards, there's of course Donald, who, like I said, I think is the most reasonable musketeer to include in a deck built less around musketeers as a whole, and more just around maximising Mickey's potential. The stat line is okay, he curves well. Perhaps a better choice, however, might be Joshua Sweet, who has 1 less strength and lacks the Stay Alert ability, but quests for 2, which I think is vastly superior. Again, we're putting a lot of focus into building a board of bodyguarders and getting off a big draw turn, but we still need to actually chase our win condition and be questing for lore at some point. So Joshua is probably better. The last 4-drop with bodyguard is Namari, Morning Mist. Her ability to challenge ready characters is incredibly strong, but her underwhelming stats and the fact that she's uninkable has left her very much out of meta play, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. Especially in a deck like this, centered around our Mickey Mouse, who is already uninkable, as is the Minnie and the Blue that we want to play. Realistically, we probably want to play Lanterns in a deck like this as well, and the 1-drop quest for 2 Lilo also sounds pretty reasonable to work with our 2-drop bodyguards. And there will likely be other uninkables that we want to squeeze in, so I don't see this one being very high on the priority list. Now, there are a fair few 5-drop bodyguards, and while sometimes we will look to shift Mickey on 5, there'll also be times where we want or need to wait longer. So it's likely still worth including a couple of the more bulkier bodyguards. Maximus is an interesting choice straight away because, like Mickey, he has the support keyword. Amber has access to the Dragon Gem item, which lets us recycle characters with support from the discard pile. There is some synergy here because a deck like this may also want to play cards like Simba and Cinderella, who let you draw and discard. With Dragon Gem, we can more freely throw away our uninkable Mickey early, knowing that we can go back and grab him later when we need him. And if we're going to utilise this, we definitely want some other viable targets with support, making Maximus an okay choice. I don't think that Dragon Gem Engine is currently the right way to play this, at least until we get some more, preferably cheaper and better support characters, but still worth bringing up. There's also Goofy, who we discussed earlier. Again, I don't think the and 2 for T ability will bring much worth, but the ability to survive and then along came Zeus is big. Our best 5-drop choices, in my opinion, have us choosing between either Nani, Protective Sister, or the upcoming Chen Pao. Nani quests for 2, but Chen Pao is a little bulkier, but more importantly has enough strength to stay out of the range of Madame Medusa. This will be a choice you make based on how the meta looks and the balance of the rest of your deck choices. The only bodyguard character left to mention is Pluto, Determined Defender, who is very expensive. But if we shift him, he's a bit more reasonable, and his Pluto shift target is a strong card anyway, letting us reduce character costs. So the big dog may find success alongside our Mickey. The last bodyguard related cards left to mention are Minnie, musical artist, who isn't great, so I wouldn't bother there. And lastly, the musketeers to Bard, as I mentioned earlier. More card draw is good, and this deck will have a lot of bodyguarders to capitalize on this item's trigger requirement. So this is probably a good add. It's going to feel bad if it's immediately removed by Benja, but you may be able to play the Tabard and then do some challenge trades yourself to immediately gain value. The last important thing to discuss is what are we shifting onto. I've spent most of this video assuming that you will pair this Amber Mickey with Steel, because that gives us access to a lot of the good bodyguard characters. But you could go a different way if you wanted. There are plenty of Mickey Mouses to choose from. The ruby one is definitely too expensive. Emerald and Amethyst are options, but I don't think provide the best synergy to capitalize on our Musketeer Floodborn Mickey. Sapphire's Detective Mickey may be an alternative option, helping us ramp our ink and increase our odds at being able to flood the board with cheap bodyguards and then shift out Mickey. Unfortunately, by cutting out Steel, we lose a lot of those better bodyguards. Steel already comes with a couple of Mickeys. We have the 4-cost uninkable Trumpeter, who has seen nearly zero play in competitive Lorcana since its release, and I don't see that changing now. But more reasonably, we have a 3-cost Stalwart Explorer. The ability may or may not be relevant depending on whether or not we can or want to find room for locations, but the 3/3 stat line on a 3-cost inkable is the main attraction here. Don't get me wrong, we would much prefer to have a cheaper Mickey, but as it stands, a 3-cost is the cheapest we have. The number one contender, however, luckily already lives in Amber. We have another 3-cost inkable with a 3/3 stat line, but this one, Quest for 2. A true friend indeed. Again, 3-cost is kind of expensive, but it's the best we have. And this particular Mickey, I think, absolutely takes priority as our preferred shift target, with his 2 lore making all the difference. That's pretty much all the synergy I wanted to talk about concerning Mickey Mouse Musketeer Captain. So with all that said, how good is he? My honest initial thoughts are, he's okay. Card draw should never be overlooked, and bodyguards already see a degree of play. Tiana Bodyguards has been a fairly powerful deck for the last 2 formats, and there could be a place for him there. Although in that case you would want to be careful of drawing too many cards, as Tiana requires an empty hand, but it's also perfectly reasonable to shift your Mickey, draw 2, and then maybe ink 1 and play the other, so I don't think it's a bad ad. Really, for this Mickey to reach his full potential, I think we need a 1 or a 2-drop Mickey in Amber or Steel, and we need a couple more cheap bodyguards, preferably with only 1 cost. If we get those, then yeah, I think Mickey could absolutely be a strong card in the meta. As it stands, I think being uninkable and having to rely on a shift to get his effect off are real drawbacks. But this is definitely a card to try and get a couple of copies of, because I do think he could have a lot of potential in the future. As for Musketeer decks, this is a 100% 2 to 3 count, and this is going to make that fun archetype a lot better.
What do you say, everybody? All for one and one for all!
And that's it from my analysis. As you can probably tell, I've been working off a page of notes. We're into the ad-lib now. Yeah, that's it. Mind blown that I got to reveal not only a legendary, which I think I'm the first YouTuber to get to do that. There may have been others that I'm missing, but I know it's not common, and I appreciate that so much. I realise it's a big deal. And again, to be presented Mickey Mouse, like, what an honour for a Disney fan. I know everyone was expected that I'd get a villain or a song, but I've had villain and songs the last 2 sets. If I am lucky to get more card reveals in the future, then I'm sure at some point down the line they would throw me another villain. But how could you be mad to be presented a Mickey Mouse card? So yeah, I'm overwhelmed. A huge thank you to Ravensburger, and a huge thank you to you guys, all my viewers, that without you guys watching my videos, this stuff would not be happening for me. I'm aware it wouldn't. So just a huge thank you. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I've milked this reveal for all it's worth. Very grateful, very thankful. This is probably a live premiere, so if you're in the chat and are still in the chat right at the end of this video, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Do please hit the like button for me. It really, really helps. Oh, sorry, one last thing, because John T. Hey, John T. I don't think you're going to like this card, so allow me to respond. It's a 7-cost uninkable, Floodborn Hero, Musketeer Captain, 3/6, quest for 2, shift 5, bodyguard and supports, and Musketeers United. When you play this character, if you use shift to play him, you may draw a card for each character with bodyguard you have in play. That should clear that up right there and then. But that's it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you're brand new to the channel, please subscribe for all things Lorcana. Hit that like button to show your support. And we'll see you soon.